Hello, my topic is to phase 3 trials of Inclisiran in patients with elevated LDL cholesterol. Definition: LDL stands for low density lipoprotein. Sometimes it is called fat cholesterol because a high LDL level leads to a build-up of cholesterol in the arteries.
Cholesterol is the primary focus for assessing risk in heart disease and also the main target for treatment of cholesterol abnormalities. So to understand why this is important, it's helpful to look at where LDL comes from and how it's circulated in the body. Now, we know that the majority of cholesterol is formed in the liver, about 75%, and the rest comes from foods that we eat, about 25%. So cholesterol formed in the liver, combined with triglycerides, are packaged into the lipoproteins, VLDL. These VLDL particles, which mostly have triglyceride, can be transformed by certain enzymes in the body to form the LDL cholesterol. This is the cholesterol that circulates the majority of cholesterol throughout the body. Now, when there's an excess of LDL cholesterol, there are certain receptors on the liver that can uptake the LDL and remove cholesterol back into the liver for reincorporation into VLDL or excretion in the bile back into the gut. Now, when LDL cholesterol is in excess, we may overcome this check and balance system. And this excess LDL cholesterol may be transferred to blood cells, to artery wall cells, causing plaque buildup, which can lead to atherosclerosis and subsequently heart attack. Now, how bad is LDL cholesterol? Well, for about every 10% increase in LDL cholesterol, there's a corresponding 10% increase in risk of having a heart attack or stroke. So looking at this schema, it's somewhat easier to understand why we focus on LDL cholesterol in order to assess risk from the lipid profile, but also focus on it as the major target for treatment to reduce risk. Our main medication for reducing LDL cholesterol are statins. You've probably heard of statins. They've been around for a long time and are very effective at reducing LDL cholesterol. They work by blocking the synthesis or creation of cholesterol in the liver. By so doing, when the liver senses that there's less cholesterol, they're able to increase the number of these receptors on the liver and therefore extract more cholesterol from LDL. So statins, depending on the dose and the drug chosen, can lower LDL cholesterol substantially, anywhere from 25 to 55%.
Inclisiran is a small interfering RNA and the only cholesterol-lowering medication in its class. The drug mimics a genetic variant and prevents the production of the PCSK9 protein, which in turn lowers LDL.
On the block, Inclisiran. So this harnesses the power of RNA interference, and if you think about it, this is like switching off the PCSK9 tap instead of clearing it with a bucket. And I use that analogy because the way that this compound works is that with a single injection, we see reductions at 9 months of about 41%, a time average reduction in PCSK9 with a single injection. We tested two different dosing regimens, two different frequencies. The first one, really a starting regimen of just a single injection and seeing what happens over time. And the second one basically involved a second injection at 3 months. And what we found is you actually got bigger and more sustained LDL reduction at 9 months with that regimen. You got on average a 50% reduction in LDL. When you look at individual variability, everybody responds. These aren't like the characteristic waterfall plots that you see with statins or even monoclonals. This is unprecedented. Everybody responds. Now, some people will get a reduction in LDL cholesterol of around 20%. The maximum we saw was 80%. The average was 52.6. But what it does do is it keeps the individual reductions in LDL constant over time. And one big challenge we have is patient adherence, patient compliance. This abolishes that, because you could actually have a situation where you give the patient the injection in doctor's surgery, or a nurse going out and giving them the injection. So the patient now is freed of that burden of how am I taking my tablets, or remembering to take my monoclonal injection, and you're getting the same reduction in LDL and it's sustained. So we might actually be approaching a real crossroads in medicine whereby the problems of adherence and compliance are totally abolished by this new way of treating LDL cholesterol. We have to do, there are a number of studies are planned, including a cardiovascular outcome study, which will be starting very soon, called Orion 4. So we'll have to wait 3 years. There are some studies being done in FH and other studies like in statin-tolerant patients, perhaps, and other groups. But it's a really fantastic opportunity now to focus or to build on what we saw with Fourier and ask the question, can we pick the right patients? And two, can we do it better?
Application in nursing. Nursing performs is key the management of hypercholesterolemia, both in the identification and in the follow-up, control and diet of patients. The latter be essential to prevent the appearance of cardiovascular disease in patients with high cholesterol levels.
Elevated low-density lipoprotein cholesterol is a major risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Proprotein convertase subtilis kexin type 9, or PCSK9, is a novel and well-validated target for lowering LDL cholesterol. PCSK9 is a serine protease enzyme that is secreted into the bloodstream by the liver. It binds to LDL receptors extracellularly or intracellularly and promotes degradation of the LDL receptor within hepatocytes. Circulating LDL cholesterol levels can increase. Reducing circulating PCSK9 levels has been shown to reduce LDL cholesterol levels. A novel method of reducing PCSK9 levels involves the use of a small interfering RNA, or siRNA, targeted to PCSK9. The siRNA binds to an RNA-induced silencing complex, which can then bind to messenger RNA molecules encoding PCSK9, leading to their cleavage and degradation. To enhance the efficacy of this agent, the siRNA is conjugated to carbohydrate residues that bind to asialoglycoprotein receptors in the liver, leading to uptake of the agent specifically into hepatocytes, where PCSK9 is expressed. This siRNA agent has been given the name Inclisiran. In a single-blind phase 1 study, 70 healthy volunteers and patients were randomized to receive subcutaneous Inclisiran or placebo. Participants were assigned to a single ascending dose phase, ranging from 25 to 800 milligrams, or to a multiple dose phase, weekly, biweekly, and monthly, with or without statin therapy. In the single ascending dose phase, an Inclisiran dose of 300 milligrams or more was found to reduce serum PCSK9, and LDL cholesterol was reduced with an Inclisiran dose of 100 milligrams or more at day 84. Reductions in PCSK9 and LDL cholesterol were maintained for 6 months after Inclisiran doses of 300 milligrams or more. All multiple dose regimens of Inclisiran reduced PCSK9 and LDL cholesterol levels at day 84, and the reduction was maintained for at least 6 months for all dose cohorts. Common mild and moderate adverse events included cough,
musculoskeletal pain, nasopharyngitis, headache, back pain, and diarrhea. None of the adverse events led to discontinuation of treatment. The authors conclude that an Inclisiran dose of 300 milligrams or more significantly reduced PCSK9 and LDL cholesterol for at least 6 months. Full trial results are available at nejm.org.
Pros and cons. Pros. Data show that twice a year increases acylation, powerful LDL reduction with an excellent safety profile, and no treatment related side effects on the liver or kidney. Cons. In phase 3 studies, Inclisiran was reported to be well tolerated with a safe profile similar to placebo. The most frequent adverse reactions reported are diabetes mellitus, hypertension, nasopharyngitis, arthralgia, back pain, dyspnea, bronchitis, and upper respiratory tract infection. I should apply in Ecuador. A dose of Inclisiran of 300 milligrams or greater cause a 50% reduction in LDL cholesterol that lasts at least 90 days, while two doses cause a 57% reduction that lasts up to 6 months. Conclusion. The reduced index reduced LDL cholesterol levels, being the most notable reduction in the index 300 double dose regimen. Reduction in LDL cholesterol levels of approximately 50% were obtained administered subcutaneously every 6 months. More adverse events occur at the injection site with the inclusion of placebo.
CEO of Alnylam. I wanted to spend a few minutes today to talk about the Orion 11 results with Inclisiran. And let me start by congratulating our colleagues over at the Medicines Company who led the development and will commercialize Inclisiran. And let me also thank the patients, the physicians, and the study coordinators who participated in the entire Orion program. Orion 11 is a landmark event for RNAi therapeutics. It is, in fact, the largest ever conducted randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study of an RNA therapeutic with over 1,600 patients enrolled. And when combined with the other Orion studies, over 3,500 patients have been enrolled in the entire Orion program, a very robust phase 3 program. Now, as reported, the Orion 11 result was very positive. The study met its primary and all of its secondary endpoints and showed a safety profile that was in fact very favorable. This, of course, is now the third positive phase 3 result for an RNAi therapeutic ever, and in fact, Alnylam's second positive phase 3 study this year alone. So what does it mean for Alnylam and for the whole field of RNAi therapeutics? Well, first of all, because of the significance of the safety data here, these data show that there's no systematic safety signal as part of the Alnylam platform for delivering RNAi therapeutics. And this obviously is a very clear test of that hypothesis. It's also important to note that the patients in the Orion 11 study were quite sick. They are patients with advanced coronary artery disease. So this is a stringent test of the safety hypothesis for RNAi. Secondly, as it relates to our broader portfolio, these data really embolden our efforts
around larger unmet need disease opportunities for advancing RNAi therapeutics. Opportunities like our efforts in hypertension, our efforts in NASH, amongst other indications that we're advancing. And then finally, assuming Inclisiran is approved, this will become another source for near-term revenue generation for Alnylam that will lead us to a transition toward a self-sustainable financial profile for future growth.